You're not lacking potential, you're leaking power. Not in one dramatic collapse quietly, daily, through noise you never meant to invite in, through the fear of being misunderstood, through the habit of postponing what matters until you feel ready, through people and environments that keep pulling you back toward the old version of you, the one that feels familiar, even if it feels small. And here's the truth most people refuse to face as the calendar turns. 2026 is not a reset button, it's a mirror. It will simply magnify whatever you keep tolerating. Reinvention doesn't begin when you add more goals, more plans, more motivation. It begins when you change command, when you decide who holds the steering wheel, your character or your reflexes. Today, I want to give you a simple framework. Think of it as an inner kingdom protocol. 7 gates that protect your mind and rebuild your authority from the inside out. You'll learn how to curate what enters your mind, how to build strength through solitude, how to live without needing everyone's understanding, how to need less so you can't be controlled, how to treat time like the sacred currency it is, how to move before you feel ready, and how to burn the bridges that keep you returning to who you've outgrown. And as we go through this, keep one lesson in your mind, the one you already feel yourself resisting. Because the gate you avoid is usually the gate you need most. Number 1. Guard your inputs like your mind depends on it. Most people don't lose their lives in one big mistake. They lose it in 1,000 tiny openings. They wake up and the first thing they touch is a screen. Before they've even formed a thought of their own, they've already downloaded someone else's agenda into their mind. Then they spend the day wondering why they feel scattered, why their focus is thin, why their mood is sharp, why comparison feels automatic. You end the day the same way: more noise, more stimulation, more opinions, more headlines you can't influence, more arguments you were never part of, and you tell yourself, "I'm just relaxing. I'm just staying informed." But your nervous system doesn't experience it as neutral, it experiences it as threat. Here's the metaphor. Your mind is a kingdom. Every piece of content you consume is either a soldier strengthening the walls or a saboteur slipping through the gate. Every conversation is either an ally sharpening your character or a toxin that turns your inner world into a battlefield. Every space you live in is either order that calms you or clutter that keeps you restless. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." That's not poetry, that's physics. You will become what you repeatedly feed. There is no such thing as just for fun if the fun leaves you weaker afterward. Here's the deeper psychology most people miss. Your brain doesn't clearly distinguish between "I'm just scrolling" and "I'm studying." It tracks repetition and emotion. If you repeatedly consume things that trigger outrage, envy, fear, or craving, your system learns to live on alert. That's why you can know so much and still feel anxious, reactive, unfocused. You're not lacking intelligence, you're living inside constant stimulation. So here's your practice. For 7 days, run an input audit. Every night, write down 3 categories: what you watched or read, who you talked to, and what kind of environment you spent your day inside. Then ask one question: did this make me clearer or did it make me foggier? If it makes you foggier, don't negotiate with it. Don't say, "I'll reduce it slowly." Cut it, remove it. You don't need more information. You need more silence so you can hear your own voice again. Number 2, build your tolerance for solitude. Most people aren't afraid of being busy. They're afraid of the gap. The moment there's nothing to do, nothing to scroll, nothing to answer, something tightens inside. So you fill it. Music in the background, a video playing while you eat, messages, notifications, fake urgency. You stay occupied, but not present. This isn't productivity. it's avoidance. Think of solitude like a weight room for the mind. At first, it feels uncomfortable. Your thoughts feel heavy. Your attention shakes. You want to quit. But that discomfort isn't damage, it's resistance. And resistance is how strength is built. If you never train it, your inner structure stays weak, no matter how smart or capable you are. Seneca put it simply, the sign of a well-ordered mind is being able to remain in one place and linger in its own company. Not escape, not distract, remain. Here's the part most people don't realize. You're not avoiding silence because you hate quiet. You're avoiding it because silence brings delayed truths to the surface. The conversation you've been postponing, the promise you broke to yourself, the fear you've been numbing instead of facing. Noise keeps those things buried. Silence lets them speak. From a psychological angle, constant input trains your nervous system to depend on stimulation to feel safe. Solitude removes that crutch. That's why it feels edgy at first. Your system is learning to regulate itself without external sedation, and that's a skill most adults never develop. So don't romanticize it. Start small. 10 minutes a day of no input solitude, no phone, no music, no reading, no learning. Just you, sitting, breathing, observing what shows up. The restlessness, the boredom, the urge to escape. Don't fix it, don't label it, just stay. You're not trying to feel calm. You're training yourself not to run. Say this quietly, once. I'm not escaping myself anymore. Because when you can tolerate silence, you stop being easy to manipulate. You don't need constant validation. You don't need constant distraction. And from that stillness, real authority starts to grow. Number 3. Learn to be okay with being misunderstood. Pay attention to how much energy you lose trying to be understood. Explaining your choices, justifying your direction, softening your words so others don't feel uncomfortable. You call it communication, but most of the time, it's permission-seeking. And it leaves you tired, second-guessing yourself, quietly resentful. Here's the truth. You are not required to make your life make sense to people who aren't living it. Yet many people live as if they need a signed approval form before they're allowed to move forward. As if every decision needs witnesses. As if growth must be validated to be legitimate. That's the metaphor. You're asking for a license to live from people who don't carry your weight, don't fight your battles, and don't pay the cost of your consequences. Epictetus saw this clearly. He said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish." In plain language, growth will confuse people, and if you need their understanding, you will stall. Here's the deeper psychological layer. The need to be understood is often just people-pleasing in a smarter disguise. Instead of saying yes to everyone's requests, you say, explain to everyone's doubts. You trade your freedom for social reassurance. You give up momentum in exchange for temporary safety. But look closely at the cost. Every time you over-explain, you teach yourself that your judgment isn't enough, that your clarity requires outside approval, and over time, your inner authority erodes. Stoicism draws a clean line here. You control your character, your effort, your integrity. You do not control how others interpret you. Trying to manage their perception is wasted energy, energy that could be used to actually live well. So, here's the practice. When someone questions your path, use one closing sentence. This is right for me. Then stop. No debate, no defense, no persuasion. Not because you're arrogant, but because you're grounded. Maturity isn't rebellion, it's alignment. It's living in a way that your conscience can stand behind, even when the room doesn't. Because a grown mind doesn't need an audience to agree. It only needs its values to remain intact. Number 4, Train yourself to want less so you can stand taller. Most people don't realize they're living in quiet hunger. Not hunger for food, hunger for more. More recognition, more comfort, more experiences, more upgrades, more proof that they matter. And even when they get what they chased, the satisfaction lasts for a moment, then the craving returns, asking for the next thing. That's the background of modern life. A nervous system trained to feel not enough. Here's the metaphor. Need is an invisible chain. The more you need, the more pullable you become. If your peace depends on specific outcomes, specific people, specific comforts, then you are not free. You are negotiating with life like a hostage negotiator, and life does not sign your contract. Seneca said it plainly, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." Not poor in money, poor in sovereignty, poor in calm, poor in control. And here's the deeper psychological layer. Constant wanting is not always ambition. A lot of the time, it's compensation. You crave status because your self-respect is unstable. You crave consumption because you don't know what you're building. You crave attention because silence makes you face yourself. So you keep buying, scrolling, upgrading, chasing not because you truly need it, but because you don't want to feel the emptiness underneath. Stoicism doesn't tell you to reject success. It tells you to break dependence. Because the moment your happiness becomes conditional, you become controllable. That's why the Stoics practiced voluntary simplicity, not as punishment, as training. When you can be content with less, you cannot be threatened by losing more. And when no one can threaten you with loss, you stand taller without arrogance, without noise, just quiet power. Here's the practice. 1 month less. Choose one area to reduce on purpose. Shopping, convenience, food indulgence, entertainment, comfort. Not to suffer, not to prove anything to other people, but to prove something to yourself. I'm not dependent. When the urge hits, pause and ask, is this truly improving my life or just feeding a craving? And then do the hard, liberating thing, delay it, reduce it, walk away. Because every time you need less, you gain something most people never touch. Freedom. When you require less, loss stops being a threat. And that's real power. Number 5, stop living like time is endless. You don't waste your life in one dramatic decision. You waste it in small delays that feel harmless. You postpone the conversation you know you need to have. You postpone the project that could change your future. You postpone leaving what is draining you. You postpone starting because you tell yourself you'll do it when things calm down. And without noticing, weeks become years. Here's the metaphor. Time is the only currency you can't earn back. You can lose money and recover. You can lose reputation and rebuild. You can lose strength and train it back. But time only moves in one direction. Every hour you spend on distraction is an hour you traded permanently. Marcus Aurelius didn't romanticize this, he made it practical. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. Not to scare you, to wake you up. Because nothing clarifies priorities like remembering you are not guaranteed another year. And here's the deeper psychological problem. You waste time because you can't feel its price. Time doesn't scream when it leaves. It doesn't announce itself. It slips out quietly. That's why it's the easiest thing to disrespect. But it always charges you a fee. It charges you in unfinished potential. It charges you in relationships you neglected until it was too late. It charges you in the version of you that never got built. The modern world is designed to make this worse. It turns minutes into nothing. Infinite scroll, autoplay, notifications, manufactured urgency. You look up and the day is gone. and you don't even remember what you consumed. Stoicism gives you a harsher but cleaner truth. Later is not a plan. Later is a mood. Later is a story, and most people die inside that story. So here's the practice. The last day question. Every morning, before you touch your phone, ask yourself, if today were my last day, what would I stop doing? What would I finally say? What would I create? What would I no longer tolerate? Then choose one small action that makes your day match your answer. One message you've been avoiding, one page you finally write, one uncomfortable task you start, one boundary you set. Nothing heroic, just real. Because reinvention is not a speech, it's a daily allocation of time. And the closing line to carry with you is simple. You don't need to live fast. You need to live true. Number 6. Stop waiting to be ready. Move even while you're not. You've been telling yourself a quiet story. That one day you'll feel ready. Ready to begin. Ready to speak. Ready to commit. Ready to become the person you keep imagining. And while you wait for that feeling, time keeps moving without you. Readiness feels responsible. It sounds mature. It gives fear a clean uniform. But look closely, and you'll see what it really is. A waiting room where life slowly drains away, unnoticed. Nothing dramatic happens there. No failure, no rejection, just delay after delay until years disappear. Marcus Aurelius didn't believe in that room. He wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Not later, not when conditions improve. Now inside the uncertainty, inside the discomfort, inside the imperfect moment you're standing in." The deeper truth is this. What you call preparation is often just avoidance with better language. You're not waiting for clarity, you're waiting for fear to leave. But fear doesn't leave on its own. It leaves when you move through it. And if you wait until fear disappears, you will wait forever. Life does not reward readiness, it rewards participation. Competence doesn't arrive first and invite you to begin. It forms while you're moving, stumbling, adjusting. Every capable version of you exists on the other side of actions you haven't taken yet. Think about the thing you keep postponing, the project you plan endlessly, the conversation you rehearse in your head, the path you won't step onto because you don't feel enough yet. That hesitation isn't protecting you, it's keeping you small. Stoicism doesn't ask you to be reckless. It asks you to be honest. Honest about the fact that you will never feel fully prepared. Honest about the fact that uncertainty is permanent. Honest about the fact that growth happens in motion, not in thought. So don't wait to feel different. Act while you feel exactly as you do now. Begin badly. Begin awkwardly. Begin with doubt in your chest and fear in your hands. Let the action teach you what thinking never could. Say this quietly to yourself. I don't need to be ready. I need to move. Because strength is not something you discover before action. It is something you build by acting again and again, long before you feel ready. Number 7. Accept that some bridges must be burned. There are people you still keep close, not because they belong in your future, but because they are familiar to your past. You stay in conversations that drain you. You return to dynamics that no longer fit. Not out of love, but out of fear. Fear of being disliked. Fear of being alone. Fear of being judged as someone who changed. But change is the point. Some bridges do not connect you to where you are going. They connect you back to who you were. And every time you cross them, you undo a little of the work you've been trying to build. Not loudly, quietly. One compromise at a time. The Stoics understood this without sentimentality. Epictetus did not say to keep everyone you have history with. He taught that you should keep close those whose presence strengthens your character. Not the oldest relationships, not the most familiar ones, the right ones. Here is the truth beneath the hesitation. You are not holding on because you care deeply. You are holding on because guilt feels safer than grief, because habit feels easier than honesty, because letting go would force you to admit that something in your life has expired. But habit is not destiny. When you remain loyal to relationships that require you to shrink, you slowly betray yourself. You begin to speak less clearly. You soften your edges. You hide your growth so others don't feel threatened. And eventually, you feel tired without knowing why, heavy without knowing what you're carrying. Stoicism does not ask you to hate anyone, it asks you to see clearly. So pause and ask yourself, without drama, without blame, when I am around this person, do I become stronger or weaker? Do I feel more honest or more performative? Do I move forward or do I feel pulled backward? If the answer keeps pointing in the same direction, listen. Not every ending needs an argument. Not every distance needs an explanation. Sometimes the most ethical thing you can do is reduce access, set a boundary, or walk away quietly. Burning a bridge is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of clarity. You do not burn it because you hate what's on the other side. You burn it because you refuse to keep returning to a version of yourself you have already outgrown. You don't need to resent anyone. You just need to stop abandoning the person you are becoming. You're not here because you're searching for a new version of yourself. You're here because you're tired of living under invisible control. Tired of waking up with potential then leaking it all day through noise, through fear, through delay, through the need to be approved, through relationships that keep pulling you back into an older shape. And if you look at what we just walked through, it's not a motivational speech. It's a reclaiming. You moved from chaotic input to a mind with a gate. You stopped treating every notification, every opinion, every headline as something that deserves access to your inner life. You began to curate what enters, because what enters becomes what you think, and what you think becomes what you live. You moved from fearing solitude to standing on your own feet. You stopped filling every gap with sound. You built the ability to remain with yourself because the person who can sit in silence is the person who cannot be easily manipulated. You moved from needing to be understood to living by a standard, not arrogance, not coldness, just clarity. You remembered that your job is not to make your growth comfortable for everyone else. Your job is to grow. You moved from needing more to needing what is true, because craving isn't ambition when it keeps you anxious. Wanting less isn't deprivation when it gives you power. When you need less, fewer things can threaten you. You moved from forgetting time to respecting your life. You stopped spending hours like they were free. You began treating each day like it matters because it does. Time doesn't shout when it leaves. It just leaves, and it always charges a fee. You moved from waiting to acting, not because you suddenly felt ready, but because you finally saw what ready really was. A story fear tells so you don't have to risk becoming real. So you learn to move while you're still unfinished, to begin while your hands are still shaking, to build identity through proof, not promises. And you moved from keeping every bridge to keeping only the roads that lead to freedom. You stopped calling guilt loyalty. You stopped calling habit love. You stopped returning to places you've outgrown just to keep other people comfortable. This is the core Stoic truth beneath everything. You do not own what already happened. You do not own the outside world. You do not own other people's opinions. You only own how you show up right now. Your choice, your character, your direction. And that is why reinvention is never loud. It's small decisions, repeated in silence until the old version can't follow you anymore. until nothing outside you has the authority to command you. Not noise, not craving, not approval, not comfort, not the past. So here's your next step. In the next 24 hours, comment the one lesson you're doing first, not the one you like the most, the one you resist the most, because that's usually the one that unlocks you. And if you want to keep training your mind with Stoic philosophy, Stoic mindset, and Stoic wisdom here on Stoic Current, subscribe and we'll keep building quietly, day by day.